So when I did my last Friday live stream, somebody, Heather Green, God bless her, brought up the protests that have been going on in the Netherlands, protests being done by Dutch farmers because of environmentalist policies that the Dutch government wants to impose. And this got me to look more into this. It got me to look more into the climate change environmentalist fanatics and what they want to do. In the Netherlands, they want to force the farmers, the cow farmers, to reduce Holland's cow population by a third. So they want to cut down a third of the cow population. And this, of course, has pissed off these farmers because after the United States, the Netherlands is the biggest agricultural exporter. It makes over 100 billion euros a year on exporting agriculture. It's a huge, huge part of the Dutch economy. And so it's understandable that these people would be pissed off. And this is really just uh, how incredibly stupid this is. This idea of attacking cows and making it out as though cows are this huge environmental hazard. Like, are people this retarded that they believe this stuff? Cows produce fertilizer. Okay, hold on. Let's reverse this a little bit. Let's go and rewind a little bit here. Cows eat plants. Okay, the great majority of the diet that's given to cows on farms is grass, leaves, like the remnants of what's left of canola after canola oil has been produced. What's left of oranges after they've been squeezed of their juice, like things like this, like what's left of almonds after they've been processed. Like, this is what they feed cows, and we humans don't eat this stuff, right? We can't eat this stuff. It's not viable for our diet as humans. But cows can live off these ingredients. Cows can live off these things. And cows convert these things, grass, etc., leaves, the remnants of plants and almonds, etc. Cows eat these things, and they convert these things into actual viable nutrition that's essential for us: calcium and protein, and other forms of nutrients. Cows produce or take these things, they eat them, and they convert them into essential nutrients. And we take in that nutrients by eating the cows and by drinking their milk. And so cows also, they eat the plants from the earth, and then they shit, right? They produce manure, and that manure goes back into the earth, and from that manure we produce vegetables, we produce feed for animals. It's this constant cycle that's necessary for our survival. And it's amazing how people want to sit there and say, well, cows are like this horrible environmental hazard, but they're absolutely necessary. Their meat, their milk feeds billions of people, and their fertilizer, their manure, helps us get more and more produce. And here's another example as just to how stupid this whole hysteria is. Before the mid-1800s, in the United States, they were an estimated 30 to 60 million bison, over 10 million elk, 30 to 40 million white-tailed deer, 10 to 13 million mule deer, and 35 to 100 million pronghorn and caribou. roaming North America. And before you sit there and say, well, that was a long time ago, and those animals were like roaming around freely, and dung beetles were eating their crap, and so there wasn't a lot of methane, or there wasn't as much methane going in the air. They did a study on how much methane emissions were being produced by animals before the European settlement of America. And what they concluded was that before the Europeans settled in America, the animals, the bison, the elk, the deer, these animals produced 86% of the methane emissions that America's current livestock population produces today. So they're saying, they're producing all this methane, blah, 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 which contributes to greenhouse gas emissions and all this stuff. But before the Europeans even settled here, the bison, the elk, and the deer were already producing 86% of the methane gases that America's cattle produces right now. And you're talking before the Europeans came to America, when America did not have the population that it does now, when America did not have the meat industry that it does now. It was just Native Americans and animals. And it was already producing 86% of the methane that America's cattle industry produces right now. So before industry, before the evil agricultural industry came here, way before, it was already producing all this methane. The animals were already producing all this methane. And that's just from 3 types of animals: the bison, the elk, and the deer. It's not accounting for all the other animals that were living here. The whole thing is retarded. But it goes to show you how controlling these people can be. These environmentalists, these green fanatics. It shows you how crazy these people are. And, this got me to think about how there is this image that certain people like to project about themselves. They like to say that they are free spirits, right? Or they like to give off this impression that they are free spirits and they just want to live and let live and all this stuff. They just want to live and let live, free spirits, whatever. And Christian folk, conservatives or whatever, they're all just a bunch of control freaks and all this stuff. But people who are on the left, they can be extremely controlling. Extremely controlling. They are control freaks. Because look at how they are with their policies. They say, the earth is whatever, Mother Earth is crying, Gaia is crying, whatever. Force the farmers to get rid of their cows in the name of saving the environment. And then you have, I was looking at this thing yesterday, and it's not just environmentalism. You find this in all other realms of life. Look at J.K. Rowling, the woman who wrote Harry Potter. I've never read a Harry Potter book in my life. And I don't like her books. I'm not a fan of Rowling. But nonetheless, she pissed off all these transgender people, saying that trans women really aren't women. And that pissed off a whole bunch of people, and there were people saying, don't buy her books, cancel her, etc. They acted the same way towards the governor of Florida, DeSantis. He passed this bill prohibiting the pushing of the trans agenda on children. And he went to New York City to talk to some conservative Jewish people. And there were activists in New York City pushing for the government, the local government of NYC, to prevent him from speaking in the city. It's like, well, you can't prevent him. You can't do that. You can't. I mean, you can try to prevent them, but it's like, it just shows us that you are control freaks. You want to control the other side. I mean, all ideological factions want power. Christians want power, right? Everybody wants power. My point is that the left, the liberals, whatever you want to call them, they like to give off this impression that they are free spirits, when the reality is that they want power and they want to control others. I remember, because thinking about these things has gotten me to remember certain experience that I had in school. When I was in middle school, I had this teacher, Miss Bruno was her name. And we used to argue all the time. We used to argue about, the biggest thing that we argued over was the Native American narrative, right? Like, she used to say, well, we're on stolen land. And I used to tell her all the time, like, you can leave America. If you really think this is stolen land, leave. So we used to argue all the time about stuff like that. And I remember one time, we were all in the classroom, everybody was talking, and she had this big poster of I think it was of the Declaration of Independence. And I remember I got up and I started reading it. And she said, Ted, I want you to sit down. And I said, excuse me, everybody's talking. There's nothing going on in the classroom. I would like to read the Declaration of Independence. And she's like, sit down right now. And I refused. I absolutely refused. So I think she had me kicked out of the room or something like that. And I also remember, years ago, we had there was this very wealthy couple. I won't say any names, but there was this very wealthy couple who lived in Los Angeles, and they were funding our website. They were funding our work, right, for the website, shoebot.com. And I started writing about the gay agenda. And I started writing a lot about it. And one of the people in this couple, this married couple, it was the wife, she contacted us and she said, I want Ted to stop talking about the gay agenda. I just want you guys to talk about the threat of Islam. I don't want you guys talking about the gay agenda. And she said, if you don't stop writing about this topic, then I'm going to cut off funds. And we said, okay, well, we're not going to stop. And the funds stopped. And again, this was a couple that were liberal. I mean, they were liberal. They weren't Christian. They were Jewish. And they had very liberal beliefs. But they just wanted us to talk about the threat of Islam and to support Israel. That's what they wanted us to do. And they wanted to tell us what to do, and they were using money as a way to do that. So it really goes to show you that anybody who is in an ideological faction, they want to see their ideology being advanced, and they want to stop other opinions from being expressed. This is the nature of ideology. It's also the nature of religion. I mean, naturally, if you are a part of a religion, you want everybody to respect your religion, and you want everybody to be a part of it. Religion and ideology are all about power. And I can admit that. As somebody who's religious, I can admit that. I have no issue with admitting that. The problem is that you have these people who come around and they're like, I'm a free spirit, blah, 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 blah. But they're full of it, they're controlling. And they can be even more controlling than the people that they accuse of being controlling. It reminds me of this scene from the movie Forrest Gump. There's a scene in this film where Jenny, the woman that Forrest Gump is insanely in love with, she is on drugs. She's using needles and getting herself high and taking cocaine and God knows what else, heroin, whatever. And she walks up to the edge of this building and she's about to commit suicide. She's on the verge of just killing herself. And there is this song that plays in the background called Freebird. That's the name of this song. It was an old rock and roll song from the 1970s. The song goes something like, Lord help me, I can't change. The name of the song is called Freebird. And here is Jenny, hooked on drugs, about to kill herself, on the verge of throwing herself off a building. Well, is she really free? Is she a free bird? Is she a free spirit? She's a slave. She's addicted to drugs. She's imprisoned by her own addictions. She's so miserable with herself that she doesn't mind. She doesn't even value her own life. Forrest Gump, on the other hand, is from this small town, Greenbow, Alabama, and he's free. He is as free as a bird. Anyway, you guys just heard some Theo Longi. God bless.